All right, so in this module, I want to go deeper into understanding insulin and carbohydrates and how they impact your results. So there's two different types of people. You have insulin sensitive and insulin resistant. Now, when it comes to hormones, if you're sensitive, it means that you utilize them very well. You use them, and to take them into that third layer of metabolic mastery, that understanding of energy and retention of energy, the more energy you retain and hold, the leaner you are, the more stronger and powerful you are, the more optimized you are. That's insulin and hormone sensitivity, right? Now, if you lose energy, if you don't utilize hormones properly, and you can't absorb and break hormones down and be utilized in the way that they should be, then that's known as resistance. So, insulin resistance means that you don't utilize insulin properly. There's testosterone resistance, there's cortisol resistance. This means that your body produces the hormones, but your body doesn't utilize it properly. Now, sensitivity means that you utilize those hormones properly. So back to that third layer of energy in and energy out, or being able to retain energy. When you are insulin resistant, it means that you are losing energy. You're not able to retain the energy that you have absorbed, right? So where does it go? It goes in the form of body fat. As I mentioned, body fat is the organ of inflammation. It's your body's dirty closet. It's going to store shit in there that it can't utilize. So when you take a carbohydrate in, you produce insulin, and you either shuttle it over into muscle in addition to other things, but we're going to keep it very simple. You're going to shuttle it into muscle to be utilized as energy, right? So this is how you can absorb, eat energy, and utilize it for energy, right? And so you become leaner, fitter, stronger, etc. when you're more sensitive, right? So this is getting to that third layer, understanding how you can retain and hold energy. You can form it into muscle, right? And then insulin resistance is when you take that energy that you absorbed, the carbohydrates, you produce insulin as a result to that, and it shuttles it into body fat. So this is how the lean stay leaner. They're more insulin sensitive. The fat get fatter or stay fat because they are more insulin resistant. They are not the same. So these two individuals cannot utilize carbohydrates in the same way. Now, the cool thing is that you can teach your body and get your body to a point where it can handle more. It's just like income and expenses. You have somebody who earns 10 times their expenses, right? They can afford to spend more and do more and have more and be a little more reckless in a sense. Not condoning that, but you get what I mean. Versus somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck, and robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's an insulin resistant individual. So when they have a carbohydrate, they blow up. When they look at food, they get fat. These are common things that I hear from guys when it comes to nutrition. So the type of food really matters and does impact you. That's why the nutrition framework is built the way it is, to remove carbohydrates systematically so that you don't over produce insulin and store it in body fat. Instead, we create insulin sensitivity by calming the amount of insulin being produced so that your body becomes more sensitive to it, right? So it becomes more accepting of it and shuttles it into muscle, which then gives you more energy and gives you better physique and better results. So insulin is a hormone of inflammation, and if it's abused, it's going to cause you to lose energy. It's going to cause you to gain weight. It's going to cause you to cause other hormones imbalance, and it's going to cause systemic inflammation is what we call it. So whole body inflammation, which can be a symptom of body fat. The symptoms that are caused by systemic inflammation is body fat accumulation, increased body weight, low energy, brain fog, gut health issues, back pain, joint pain, poor sleep. All these things we associate with poor health is due to systemic inflammation, which can be in part caused by insulin abuse, which is a result of having too many carbohydrates in your diet. So another thing that I'll add as a caveat is what causes the increase in carb intake in an individual. And a lot of times it's stress and it's environment and the combination of those two things. So when you have a carbohydrate, you got to look at your patterns, your lifestyle, and the amount of stress that you experience in life, mentally, emotionally, physically, energetically, everywhere. If something happens, are you triggered to have a carbohydrate? Is there a craving that starts to happen because your body starts to become used to the habits and the routines that you set it up for, good and bad and indifferent? So when you're stressed and cortisol elevates, a way to suppress that cortisol is by having some sweets or having some salty chips or having pasta or cookies or any type of carb, bread. That suppresses, that calms the cortisol down, that calms your stress down. But we know that if you abuse that, that becomes insulin resistant, and that insulin gets shuttled into body fat. And that increases inflammation, which increases stress, which increases cortisol, which creates a vicious cycle. Hopefully you can see that. And I would recommend repeating this little portion right here that I just said the last 30 seconds. When you're stressed, you typically can suppress it with carbohydrate because insulin and cortisol are inversely related. When you have a carbohydrate, you increase insulin and by nature reduces cortisol. So you feel less stress. But then eventually that insulin causes inflammation because you're not metabolizing it properly. You lose energy, so you create inflammation, which causes cortisol to spike back up, and that causes more stress. And so that can be physically, mentally, emotionally, or energetic. So you can create more anxiety, you can create more thought patterns that cause you to experience more stress, which then causes a chemical reaction and increases cortisol. So to decrease that cortisol, you got to have a carbohydrate to reduce the cortisol, and it just becomes a vicious circle. And this happens over months and years, and then you realize that you've gained all this weight, or you have back pain or joint pain or anxiety or brain fog or all these things that we've been dealing with over the years. It's an accumulation of things. It's multiple things. So in this program, in a holistic methodology that optimizes hormones and everything holistically, when you correct one thing, everything improves. So when we start to optimize our nutrition and correct a deficiency or correct a dysfunction, which is insulin resistance, that's a dysfunction. When we correct it by reducing the carbohydrates, we reduce the insulin secretion, which means that we create more insulin sensitivity, so that when you do refeed, you actually shuttle it into muscle as opposed to fat. And so therefore you shuttle it into a form that retains energy, which means you get leaner, which means you get more muscular, which means you get more testosterone, which means you manage cortisol and insulin more effectively, so you don't have this up and down effect. It's more nice and easy and more balanced. Insulin resistance means you lose energy, you gain body fat, and you increase stress in your body and in your life. So that's a deeper understanding of insulin, cortisol, carbohydrates, how it relates to everything. And if you have any questions, go ahead and reach out. Let me know if this module made sense to you. Watch it multiple times. The law of retention, repeat, repeat, repeat. This is quality information that is going to give you a deeper understanding of how to look at food as fuel, as a hormone optimizer, and ultimately a health optimizer. So that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in. See you on the next module.